Welcome back to the second episode of Beyond Skills Training Consciousness in Education. And today's episode title is Can Consciousness Be Educated? Central inquiry will be if schools intentionally teach literacy, numeracy, critical thinking, and character, can they also intentionally cultivate awareness? Before we will begin, I would like to invite you into another question, not as educator but as a learner. How many hours does a student spend learning mathematics compared to learning how their own mind works? From early childhood, students learn language, science, history, technology. They learn how to solve equations, construct arguments, write essays, conduct experiments, collaborate, present, reflect. Yet one instrument accompanies them into every lesson, every examination, every relationship success, and every disappointment, their own mind. And remarkably, it is perhaps the least intentionally understood instrument in formal education. What if the greatest curriculum students never receive is an education in the nature of their own awareness? At first glance, the question sounds radical. Can consciousness be educated? Perhaps a better question is, has education always shaped consciousness? Every educational philosophy, whether it acknowledges it or not, forms ways of perceiving. Socrates cultivated inquiry. Maria Montessori cultivated attention through purposeful activity. John Dewey cultivated reflective experiences. Parker Palmer reminds us that we teach who we are. Krishnamurti repeatedly asked whether education should free the mind from fear rather than merely prepare it for careers. The IB invites learners to become reflective, principled, open-minded, and caring. None of these traditions simply transfer information. They shape ways of being. Perhaps the question is not whether education trains consciousness. It always has the deeper question is, are we training it intentionally? William James wrote over a century ago, "My experience is what I agree to attain to." That sentence may be one of the most educationally important observations ever made, because attention determines experience. Experiences shapes memory. Memory influences identity. Identity guides future choices. Neuroscience now support this beautifully. Attention is not merely a skill. It is a gateway through which all learner enters the brain. Research by Mikhail Posner and colleagues has shown that attentional networks can be strengthened through practice. This means attention is not fixed. It is educable. If attention can be trained, perhaps awareness, the capacity to notice where attention is, can also be cultivated. Modern neuroscience increasingly suggests that the brain is not simply reacting to reality, it is continuously predicting it. Researchers such as Carl Friston have proposed that the brain constantly generates models of world and updates them based on incoming information. Think about the educational implication. A student who repeatedly predicts, "I will fail," begins to interpret neutral experiences through that expectation. Another predicts, "I can learn from mistakes." The same classroom, the same teacher, the same lesson, yet completely different internal experiences. Awareness does not stop predictions. It allows learners to notice them, and once a prediction is noticed, it can be questioned. This is remarkably close to what TOK, Theory of Knowledge, invites students to do with assumptions. Perhaps awareness is lived dimension of inquiry. Over the past 3 decades, contemplative science has emerged as a serious interdisciplinary field. Researchers including Richard Davidson, Tanya Singer, and Amishi Jha have explored how contemplative practices influences attention, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. The evidence suggests improvement in sustained attention, resilience, and aspects of emotional regulation, although effects vary depending on the practice and context. Notice, the goal is not relaxation, the goal is greater clarity. A student may still experience anxiety before an examination. Awareness does not eliminate human emotion, it changes the relationship with that emotion. That distinction is profoundly important. One of the oldest contemplative questions appears in Vrihadranyupanishad: who is one that knows? Thousands of years later, phenomenology asked, what is the nature of conscious experience? Neuroscience asks, what networks support awareness and attention? Different languages, different methods, a remarkably similar curiosity. The Bhagavad Gita offers a profound educational insight. Yogast Kuru Karmani, established in steadiness, perform action. Notice what comes first, not action, steadiness. Perhaps education had often focused on improving action. What if equal attention were given to cultivating the inner steadiness from which action emerges? When we look carefully, many elements already exist within the IB framework. The learner profile encourages reflection and principled action. ATL develops self-management, communication, research and thinking skills. TOK invites students to examine assumptions and the nature of knowledge. CAS asks students to engage authentically with the world. The extended essay develops sustained inquiry. Imagine these not as separate programs but as expressions of one deeper capacity, awareness. Awareness supports reflection, reflection strengthens judgment, judgment informs ethical action. Perhaps awareness is not an additional initiative, perhaps it is the invisible thread connecting them all. I would like to leave you with a simple image. A gardener does not pull the leaves to help the tree grow, the gardener nourishes the roots. Education has become remarkably effective at strengthening branches, knowledge, skills, assessment, achievement, but perhaps the roots deserves equal attention. Attention, presence, awareness, not because they replace academic excellence, but because they nourish it. So, perhaps our next inquiry is even more practical. So, if awareness matters, what does it actually look like in a classroom? Can it be cultivated without adding another subject, another timetable, or another assessment? That is where our next dialogue begins. And the open question for the next discussion will be, what teaches a student more deeply, the curriculum we plan or the consciousness with which we teach it? Thank you so much for joining me and your thoughts. Thank you.